out of 11 is...
Roy Keane.
Is he all right?
Tell me why he's not a good player, please, and I'll break you down quick.
Rodri can do everything Roy Keane can do. Roy Keane can't do anything that Rodri can do.
Are there any actual sensible opinions about?
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
I think it's fair to say we have a Roy Keane-shaped problem. Clearly, some people have forgotten how good he was, some people have never seen him play and have been misled, and others are just, well, lying. They know him as the uncompromising leader of Manchester United, the hard man, the enforcer, the captain. But what if I told you this image is only scratching the surface of how good he actually was? What if beneath the aggression lay one of the most complete midfielders the Premier League has ever seen, still to this day? Keane won't remind you how good he was, so I'll do it for you, Roy. Today people talk about Roy like he was just an aggressive ball winner, someone who ran around intimidating opponents.
Roy Keane in today's football sent off every game.
But here's the thing, he's one of the most underrated complete midfielders of all time. Keane's game was far more sophisticated than people give him credit for. Of course we can start with the basics. Keane wasn't just any other midfielder. For over a decade, he was the most crucial player in one of the greatest teams in football history. We're talking about a captain who led United through their most successful period and a man who almost single-handedly dragged the Republic of Ireland to the 2002 World Cup. In those qualifiers, Keane didn't just play, he dominated. Scored 4 goals along the way. In a group with Portugal and the Netherlands, Keane was the driving force behind Ireland's unbeaten campaign. Think about that for a second. Portugal had Figo in his prime, Holland had Ruud van Nistelrooy, Kluivert and Seedorf. Yeah, it was Keane, a supposed destroyer, who outshone everyone. But to understand Keane's greatness, we need to go beyond the cliches. Yes, he was aggressive, we all know that. But Keane's game was layered, complex, and incredibly intelligent. And his passing ability is never talked about, but it was elite. Now that's Wayne Rooney's opinion on Keane's passing. The same Rooney who played with, I don't know, Scholes or Gerrard or Lampard. He played for 11 years with those players, yet one season with Keane was enough to convince him of his excellence on the ball. That's not a small compliment. His vision, technique and precision were top class.
There's certain things that you don't see, like, for instance, how many times the ball would come to him and my man plays forward.
It wasn't about flashy Hollywood-style crossfield balls, but about effectiveness. Keane knew how to break the lines and get United moving forward, and he wasn't worried about putting himself in the spotlight. He just focused on making his team tick. Now, of course, no conversation about Keane can be had without also mentioning his old rival, Patrick Vieira, which is still probably the greatest individual rivalry the Premier League has ever seen, or probably ever will see. Fans have debated that for over 2 decades. Who was better? 2 great midfielders. And the general consensus among sensible non-United fans seemed to be there wasn't really a lot between them. They always give the edge in attacking and technical ability to Vieira, whilst giving Keane the nod defensively and saying he had the intangibles that you can't quantify. But here's the thing. When you dig into the numbers, one of them might have the edge in an area that will surprise you. Take a look here at how many Premier League starts both made, how many goals they scored and how many assists. Add in an extra season for Vieira and they'd be pretty much identical. Now let's look at the Champions League. Similar amounts of games. But Roy Keane, he came up big in Europe. Keane always seemed to have a bigger impact than Vieira in Europe, and the numbers show it. Now, if we look at the numbers for their overall club careers, you'll see here, Keane with a few less games, but more goals. Vieira far more of a creator though. The difference is 12 in terms of goals and assists in total to Vieira, but he also played 33 more games. Now what do those numbers tell you? Well, firstly, they tell you that Keane scored more goals, and I'm sure that's going to shock many of you. Both were box-to-box players in their prime, and both put up similar numbers in their prime. So to talk of Vieira as an offensively superior and more impactful player, well, it's strong. Keane was more than just a defensive midfielder. In fact, he contributed more to United's attack than Vieira did for Arsenal. He scored and assisted more in the Premier League and delivered more on the European stage, where it mattered most. That being said, both players were elite. And speaking of Europe, no matter how much he hates it, there's one night that will forever be remembered as summing up Keane better than any other. Turin '99. He dominated a previously untouchable midfield of Zidane, Deschamps and Davids in one of the best midfield displays in Champions League history. It wasn't just about tackling, it was leadership vision, it was everything that a performance needed to be. And ask any United fan or even any neutral about that game, and they'll tell you the same thing. Without Keane, United don't win the treble. Arguably Keane's greatest attribute was actually his ability to control the tempo of a game. He wasn't just that aggressive ball winner, he was United's engine and their conductor.
People don't appreciate or respect his actual ability. Forget all of the madness you hear about him running around, intimidating, etc. He was a footballer.
That's the type of trust that Keane inspired. He was a safety net and an elite progressor wrapped into one. Keane's intelligence was unrivaled. His positioning, anticipation and leadership allowed players like Scholes and Giggs and Beckham to express themselves more freely. Keane would cover, he would organise, and Keane would make sure that the team never lost focus. His passes were so effective because they broke the lines, and he always played the ball into his teammates' feet. He enabled Scholes to play further forward, brought United strikers into play, and the team sprang into life when he came into possession, with Beckham and Giggs running off him and the fullbacks pushing on. Ah, man, take me back. But when Keane was on the ball, United was safe. In the late 90s, United were the most thrilling counter-attacking team in Europe, and Keane's passing was vital in getting the team up the pitch and into the areas where they could hurt the opposition. In an era where central midfielders were starting to evolve, Keane remained at the heart of United's success by being the most reliable, consistent and intelligent player on the pitch. Now, when it comes to the modern midfielders debate, and you talk about Keane in comparison to those players today, some will argue that his aggressive style wouldn't fit in today's game, that he was limited technically compared to the modern-day midfielders, but it's just not true. He was clearly a goal threat. He scored 51 times in 480 appearances, and his short passing game and positional awareness were comparable to today's best deep-line playmakers, including Rodri. His influence on games, especially in Europe, rivals that of players like Sergio Busquets. The modern game is different, sure. Keane would have adapted. Intelligence, ability to read the game paired with his technical proficiency, he would have been one of the best. Even when he was maybe physically declining, he still had the ability to dominate games. In 2005, United beat Liverpool 1-0 at Anfield thanks to a Rooney goal, but it was Keane's overall performance that was pivotal. Writing in The Times, Oliver Kay said, "Gerrard was in Keane's shadow throughout." He called Keane's performance a masterclass and a lesson in how to control midfield. Gerrard was 25 at the time, entering the peak of his career. Keane was 33 and was going to be retired within 18 months, but it was Keane who shone that day. Let's quickly talk about why Keane's playing legacy has kind of been distorted. Since his retirement, Keane has embraced a cutting, no-nonsense pundit persona. Biting critiques, infamous temper. This is what the younger generation know him for. It's almost a caricature that has overshadowed how good he was as a player.
I am flabbergasted. I wouldn't even let him on the bus after the match. I get a taxi back to Manchester.
No one's got any energy to talk about how good Roy Keane was, because it's much easier just to talk about how angry he was. The reality is that the persona has allowed many people to rewrite history. They see Keane as a pundit, not Keane as a footballer. But ask the players who shared a pitch with him, and they'll tell you the truth.
If I was going to name my best ever 11, Keane would be the first on that team sheet.
If I could pick one player in my team, I would always pick Roy Keane in front of any other players I've played with.
Immense on the pitch in every single way.
How should we remember Keane? Was he just an aggressive leader? Or was he the player who controlled games, dictated tempo and led United through their most successful era? The truth is, he was both of those. He was the aggressor when needed. Just go and ask Haaland. But more importantly, he was a world-class footballer. 7 Premier League titles, 4 FA Cups, a Champions League, PFA Player of the Year, and countless iconic performances speak for themselves. You don't achieve that by being aggressive. Shouting and screaming and being excessively demanding of your teammates will only get you so far. You need to be able to play, and Roy Keane was one of the best. And in my opinion, he still remains the best captain that Manchester United have ever had in the Premier League, and I'll be surprised if we ever have a better one.